Anyone who has said wealth doesn't bring happiness has never met a dwarf. No race on Alluvium is said to be more wealthy or in general happy. The dwarven clans that reside along the Arad mountain range, found furthest east and north of Alluvium. Known throughout the world for their charismatic charm, dwarves have cornered the trading market. In every market in every city throughout Alluvium, you can find a dwarf selling his wares. These are no sleazy merchants, but respectable businessmen who, through their natural orientation, can sell you just about anything. So come across the frozen mountains with me as we enter the great halls of these famous merchants. According to the dwarves, their beginnings start in the bellows of the highest mountain peak in Alluvium, Mount Death, which now no one knows the location of. The dwarves claim to be born and crafted from lava straight from the core of Alluvium. The first dwarves made their home in Mount Eath, being led by their leader, who would have a year named after him. This dwarf was Blinder. Under his advisement, and his children's advisement, over many years and after many generations, the dwarves would learn to carve beautiful statues and craft amazing things. Eons would pass, and the dwarves would carve the mountain of their birth into a rich metropolis, and a golden age of culture innovation would blossom and seem to last forever. Then, ironically, on day 430 in the year of Blinder, everything would change. The morning would start as clear and sunny among the mountains. The markets were abuzz with chatter. The mines could be heard throughout the mountain with the clings of pickaxes, and children's laughter filled the halls. Such a beautiful day to ring the end of the Golden Age. In the far distance a screech bellowed its way along the mountain range and echoed inside the city. No one had heard such a terrifying sound before. The entire mountain braced for what was to come next. Then, nothing. A storm came in and began to wash everyone's fear away as everything returned to normal. For weeks the storm lasted, flooding many parts of the city, but still nothing happened. People would have forgotten the screech ever happened had it not been for the constant storm. Time would pass and the entire mountain would forget about the strange sound. Some dwarves on the battlements began to notice a strange breeze begin to pick up. For the most part they thought nothing of it, and went back to pretending to be awake. But soon enough the gust picked up, and became unignorable as it got stronger and stronger, till eventually some of the guards got swooped off the battlements themselves. The rest of the guards on watch rushed to see what the commotion was after hearing the screams. For a while the wind died down, and they saw and heard nothing, but then it showed itself. The dwarves didn't know what it was. Coming out of the mountain mist, the body was huge with massive claws and visible teeth, and grey fur covering its whole body, except the wings which appeared to be pale white skin. The beast opened its jaws and shot lightning towards the city defenses. Dwarven defenders rushed to the walls and shot arrows and whatever else they could at the beast, just to find out it was ineffective. They had fought dragons, giants, and every imaginable huge creature before, and were successful until now. The beast threw its body into the mountain, breaking into the massive golden gate, unleashing the same screech and reminding everyone of what they heard. Screams filled the air as the dwarven people fled further into the mountain depths, escaping the terror unleashed by the monstrosity. As King Karnak, a descendant of Blinder, was told of the situation, he ordered his mages to find a way to kill the beast, knowing they had the best chance of figuring out a way to slay it. The mages followed his command and shot various spells at the beast to significant effect, but it still did not seem enough to be able to kill it, as it rained its devastation down upon the mountain city. By this point everyone knew the beast was unstoppable, and the dwarven people were holding out in the only safe part of the city left, the royal sector. Running out of options, but trying to create some, Karnak asked his mages how this beast only reacts to magical attacks. The headmaster of the mages stepped forward and admitted with great shame that this beast was created by him. As an experiment, he wanted to make a beast that could control the dragon population, but due to his lack of caution, it was able to break free. Enraged, the king demanded the execution of all the mages, blaming them for the downfall of the mountain, and for all their memories planted on the dwarvish culture to be eradicated. As part of the execution, all dwarfish mages were sent out to see if they could kill the beast. They did not return. Knowing all hope was lost, the king ordered the remaining Dwarven engineers to build a tunnel out of the mountain. Groups exited the different places and as a result ended up settling far away from one another. The king then sealed the exits, trapping himself in, and then put on his battle gear and went to face the master of his kingdom's demise. Once unified people were now separated. The mass exodus from Mount Eoth is known to the dwarves as the Great Flight. Much technology was lost during the flight, such as the knowledge on how to enhance one's magical ability. Due to this, dwarf mages no longer exist. Not that the dwarves mind, though. They seem perfectly happy with their newfound ability to be able to speak magic. They wouldn't want to learn the same ways of magic as those who killed their great home. Still wanting to be able to cast some form of magic, though, the dwarves figured out how to have the gods speak through them. As a result, dwarves invented bars, which seemed to fit wonderfully with their already extremely charismatic nature. Every race seems to love having dwarves in their company, seeing them as fantastic party guests. That is except for the Sheed, who continuously raid their logging camps with minor success. To one who knows their origin story, it would not surprise them to figure out that the dwarves do not operate as a single entity. Rather, they are separated into clans. Each clan is run by a family, who in turn has a familial head known as a clan leader. There are many clans of dwarves scattered throughout the Irad mountain range. They do have the same culture and language, so one might wonder what it is keeping them separated. Well, the answer is simple: money. Since the Great Flight, the dwarves have shown Alluvium their unbeatable talent for smithery and construction, among many other things that involve hands-on work. As a result, they have been able to make a fortune selling their skills as well as things they can make. Dwarven Engineering is known for many fantastical things such as zeppelins and primitive gunfire. Almost all the races in Alluvium have hired the dwarves to build their structures, with the most famous project being the Imperial Highway that connects the capital of Ormar to the capital of Ingisfell and leads to all of the major cities in the human empire. The most widely renowned clan, Clan Kirsta, is the one responsible for creating the bridge. This clan shocked Alluvium by revealing their succession law, which is a common way all dwarven clans handle their succession. These laws state that when the clan head dies, everyone who has a decent claim on the title can fight for it. This means exactly what you're thinking. Civil wars inside clans are expected when the clan head dies. In the eyes of the dwarves, it means that only the strong, intelligent leaders can rise to the top. Women too are allowed to lead if they can beat out their opponents, which seems weird in the rest of the races, with a few notable exceptions I will talk about in later videos. Alongside normal-looking dwarves are their self-proclaimed, well-formed cousins. These so-called dwarves are called the Kalyak. While normal dwarves live in beautiful, huge castles and forts sculpted out from the mountains, the Kalyak live in deep, dark, and dank parts of mountains, not doing anything to make their places of living clean and what most would consider to be civilized. The Kalyak prefer darkness to roaring fires and cold, wet places to nice, warm, and bright castles. The Kalyak claimed to be from Mount Eoth like the dwarves, but did not escape right away like the dwarves did. Instead, the ancestors of the Kalyak were survivors from the attack and tried to keep living in the mountain. Whatever attacked them had long left since the survivors of the attack had awoken, so they tried to go back to life as usual. They found the king and made a monument, and for a while things had indeed gone back to normal. Whatever attacked them left behind a sort of wet substance that covered all of the structures within the city. It felt gross, but the people simply cleaned it up and thought nothing of it, until years after the cleanup, the first children having been born since the attack came out of the womb hideously disformed. Panicking, the dwarves tried everything to solve the deformities, but nothing would work. As more children were born, the same deformities would appear. Instead of white skin and long beards and walking upright, these children were born with red rash-like skin, hunched over beardless, with 4 arms and bug-like eyes. They also were less intelligent than their parents, only being able to retain so much information. This caused a massive brain drain, and over time the dwarves seemed to regress. Some swore never to have children, while others did their best to raise their children the best they could, while others left the city and left their children to die. Over time, as the normal dwarves died out, the city was left abandoned by their children for more darker and deep mountains to live in, which they are now. The dwarves believe in a pantheon they call the Deep, which are 3 gods separated in things they value the most. God of engineering named Scythian, god of commerce Uruk, and their patron god Golan, who is the god of all mountains. The dwarves will pray to each god in assistance for their work. Sometimes they will pour hours of work into something just to destroy it as a sacrificial offering to them. The dwarves believe these gods live somewhere deep to the north, where they claim the land is nothing but mountains. There is indeed mountains to the north, where some dwarf clans do live. No one has ever gone far enough north due to the extreme terrain of the mountain range. To go outside of the dwarvish borders in the north is sure suicide. So perhaps they are right. Surely lands like that have to be crafted by dwarvish gods, no? Clan Kirsta had a trading post at Sandvik when it was attacked. This led to its clan leader, Artar, to become furious. He called for a Nemik, which is where all major dwarven clans meet during times of great trouble. At the meeting, Artar expressed that this great shift in balance is going to disturb the profits that all dwarfs make. Humans had been huge buyers of dwarven products and had poured huge amounts of money into dwarven coffers by hiring them for large construction projects. Artar felt that humans had earned some loyalty from the dwarves. The majority of the leaders disagreed. One clan leader, named Riodik, argued that the dwarves should stay out of the conflict entirely, because when the war ends, because they stay neutral, there wouldn't be any tensions between the dwarves and the victor, and they'd be able to make even more profit by rebuilding after the war. He continued to argue that the Sheed have been largely unable to stop the logging efforts along the Foraze Moor border due to the new dwarven foresting robots, so they aren't a problem either. This greed only further enraged Artar. The dwarven tradition of staying inside the safety of the mountains would only lead to the death of dwarven civilization as they knew it, saying that if they wouldn't do something, he would. When Artar got back to his mountain, he saw it under siege by a coalition of major clan heads. Overwhelmed, the mountain hall fell and was occupied. Artar gathered what survivors he could and headed for Regabulum, capital of Ormar. His plan was to meet with King Commodian, and banking on all the work the Cursed Star had done for Ormar in the past, Artar would ask to stay in the capital where he could rebuild his forces, retake his mountain. Unfortunately, by the time Artar and the remainder of his clan could reach Regabulum, the Empire would be in full-out civil war, and Commodian would have larger problems to face than a lost clan head. Artar and his clan would wander the countryside, taking the odd job and putting up with degrading work so he could try and fund an army. One day, a man approached him looking for mercenaries. Oh yeah, if you watched my last video, you know exactly who this is. It's about to get good. Nameless General promised Artar that in exchange for service to the Empire, that once the rebellion was over, he'd march back to Artar's mountain and take it back with him. Artar agreed, and both he and his clan took up arms with this man in the rebellion against Commodian. They then went around the borders of Ormar, mopping up invading Chund and building a support base with the people. Disenfranchised refugees from Ingisfell flocked to the banner of the rebellion. There they were fed, clothed, and protected. By this point in the war, the government from Regabulum had completely broken down, and the refugees, seen as stupid farmers, were outright ignored. This troubled both the Nameless General and Artar, who sought out to help the people and serve them. Once enough volunteers came and support of the nobility was gained, with the help of the dwarven smiths, the entire army was outfitted for war. They first started with the outer cities, working their way in, completely encircling the kingdom. So strong was the love for the Nameless General, some cities just straight up opened the doors for him to walk into. During this time, Artar proved the doors were not just simple merchants showing bravery in battle and loyalty when it was needed. Eventually the time came to march on the capital. The Nameless General by this time had earned the respect of everyone around him and shot fear into the eyes of his enemies. He successfully occupied and controlled every major city north of Regabulum in less than 2 years since the rebellion started. Now was the time to finish it. For the average general, the walls would deter their invading army, for the walls were renowned for their density and height. But Artar served no average general. Completely undeterred, the general ordered the construction of a 500-foot trebuchet, and with the oversight of the dwarves had it built in a timely manner. He then gave the honor of naming it to Artar. Throughout all of this had become a dear friend to him. Artar gave it the name of his mountain home, Madaald. With the blessing of its name now upon it, Artar ordered the firing and the walls crumbled. The fighting lasted about 3 days, but by this time there was no changing fate, and the capital was now in the hands of the Nameless General. Now Emperor, the general stuck to his word. Keeping a capable leader behind, he marched a portion of his armies to Madaald with Artar driving out its invaders. Then together they showed the entirety of Alluvium a new brotherhood forged in dwarven fires between dwarf and man, driving out the Chun from Empire land and restoring the balance. From this point on, the Dwarven clan Kurstar would forever be a friend to the general's Neo-Empire and its descendants.